Hello everyone, it's nice to see a lot of friendly faces in the room. My name's Sara, I'm a community organiser with Citizens UK, lead organiser for Tyne and Wear Citizens. And it's clear, isn't it, from what we've heard today, that the need for a more equal society is well documented. As someone who grew up in poverty, I'm from Cowgate in the West End of Newcastle on a council estate. I know firsthand what inequality feels like and what it does to us. I was just saying to Will earlier on, it literally shrank me. I'm 5'2", I've got a size 3 foot. This is what poverty does to us. And despite all the knowledge that we have, all the expertise in this room today, equality feels further from our grasp than ever before, doesn't it? With the rates of poverty that we have in our region, and it feels like they're becoming deeper and more entrenched than ever before. As Amanda said, from the North East Child Poverty Commission, and as Will hinted earlier, there has been research to look at why in the North East, rather than other places similar to ourselves like Liverpool, are things getting so bad. And I think the key issue really is in-work poverty. Children are in households where their parents are working, but they're not simply earning enough to make ends meet. The majority of children in our region in poverty have parents who are in working households. We have no shortage of jobs that are low paid and insecure. In bars, in restaurants, in cafes and shops. It's what our region is famous for. It's why people visit us on a weekend. So until we tackle this issue, then we will not achieve equality in the North East. The good news, though, is that we do not need an election to make this happen. Although, as people have said, we have a lot of elections happening this year, which do present opportunities for us. But there is something that all of us can leave this room doing, which will make a difference. Unsurprisingly, Tyne and Wear Citizens have continuously voted to work on low pay as a priority area for action since we founded in 2016. When we began the campaign for a real living wage, there were only 30 accredited real living wage employers in our whole region, which was the lowest number in the whole of England. Not a surprise when you understand the figures, and not a single anchor institution was paying a real living wage. So this is a wage that isn't the government legal minimum wage, but is independently calculated based on a basket of goods, based on the cost of living, and changes to reflect that. So it's a wage that people can afford to live on, not poverty wages. When we started our campaign, we took it first to Newcastle University as a key civic anchor institution in our region, and it began with work with cleaners, portering staff, and catering staff. And we were absolutely delighted when Newcastle University became the first university in our region to accredit as a real living wage employer, giving about 500 staff a pay rise. We then moved to Sunderland, with the council first as a target. They were the first local authority in our region to become a living wage employer. We then visited Sunderland University dressed as Santa and elves and put them on the naughty list for paying poverty wages. Santa is in this room. I won't embarrass them by highlighting who that is. And of course, they did then eventually accredit. With 2 anchor institutions in Sunderland as real living wage employers, they were able to form an action team of living wage employers in Sunderland and became the first living wage city in our region. So we came back to Newcastle strategically with the City Council in our sights because we needed them to accredit to repeat the same in Newcastle. We worked with the unions, with a wide range of partners, and ultimately a change in leadership in the council meant that they too did accredit as a real living wage employer. And I'm absolutely over the moon that next month in March, we'll launch Newcastle as a real living wage city too, with the NHS Hospital Trust, Newcastle Building Society, voluntary sector organisations, the university, and now Newcastle United Football Club, who we've been campaigning on for ages, who've just given 800 people a pay rise, all around the table, all pulling together to try and transform our region. We've done the same in Durham. Durham University are about to accredit, but there is so much more to do. From a starting point of 30 institutions, there are now 300 in our region, real living wage employers, which impacts 90,039 workers. But we still have the lowest number in the entire country who are accredited. So there is so much more to do, but so much is possible. Because poverty is about how much money you have in your pocket at the end of the day. It is not complicated. Pay people more money and they will spend it locally. There are some missing people from that table. Northumbria University is not accredited. We would love Northumbria University to accredit and join us to transform the city. Only Sunderland and Newcastle are the only local authorities accredited. South Tyneside, North Tyneside especially, where a lot of our businesses are now headquartered, Greggs, P&G and so on. It would have a transformative impact on our economy. But Sara, we can't afford it, which is what everyone says when we begin this conversation. Nobody just says, yes, great idea, where do we sign up? We can't afford it, it's not possible. The money doesn't fall from the sky. Employers have to have the political will to do it and to make it happen. If your business or company or your employer does not pay a real living wage, then they are paying poverty wages. And if their economic structure is based on poverty pay, then I would argue it isn't viable. We cannot keep dumping our economic waste in our region. As a guy once said to me, called David, who set up a tech company in Sunderland, became a living wage employer. He says, if you do not pay a real living wage, then you're dumping your economic waste in the banks of the river and putting it into our region for our voluntary sector and our services to mop up the consequences. So the first step is accrediting. Go away and become a real living wage employer, but also support our living wage employers in our region. Go and eat your burgers and meat stack on the big market. Go and have a drink in the free trade. Go into the Tyneside Cinema Cafe and particularly support those hospitality sectors who are going further and paying a real living wage. Poor people spend their money locally. It will have a knock-on impact on our economy. The Smith Institute calculated that if just a quarter of employers paid a real living wage in this region, it would impact £74 million it would bring. So that would go a real long way to reducing the inequality we see. And I feel like it's something we can all do. And I hope you join us in the fight to do it.
So that doesn't happen by accident, as you've heard. Broad-based community organising has led to most of the big real living wage wins that you've heard about in the North East and some of the small. So I'm promoting broad-based community organising as delivered by Citizens UK as the final idea at this event, as a way to enable people from diverse communities to work together for social change and justice. Why is this so important? Well, you can see it on the screen. The report that came out from IPPR at the end of last year. The next election is set to be the most unequal for over 60 years. For the first time since the birth of democracy in this country, people do not expect their children to be better off than them. And particularly important, I'm going to go to the last one for what I'm going to say, is that our democratic machine needs rewiring. If people are once again to be authors of their own lives and to feel secure, they must sense their influence, their own influence in the collective decision-making endeavour that's democracy. How do we do that? There are lots of different ways, but I'm focusing on one, and because I know how it works and I know that it works. Community organising brings together previously unorganised people to bring their own power to force others to recognise them and respond to their needs. It builds long-lasting relationships between local people from a variety of backgrounds and institutions, so they can work together on common issues that are affecting their everyday lives, and it strengthens our institutions. That's a fantastic thing that it does. I first came across broad-based community organising just before the 2010 coalition election. Invited by a friend, I went with my family to an event in London that turned out to be Citizens' General Election Assembly. I had no idea about citizens or general election assemblies or anything before that. At this event, each prospective Prime Minister listened to a presentation of 5 asks. Presenters also crucially told personal stories. And I watched in amazement, and my family watched in amazement, as Cameron, then Clegg, then Brown, had to say in front of more than 2,000 people which they would adopt if they became Prime Minister and why. What was particularly awe-striking, whatever the word is for me, I was really awestruck by the diversity of age, gender, ethnicity, and and class of those doing the speaking and those in the audience, but also by the ingenuity and the power of bringing these men one by one to respond directly to citizens, not just on the telly, not just the media, not just, but to citizens, to people. I wanted to know more. But it would be 5 or 6 more years before citizens came to the Northeast, and some of the people in this audience brought citizens here. And Newcastle University is one of Tyne and Wear Citizens' founding partners and now has its own embedded community organiser. And between 2016 and now, you've heard from Sara what it's achieved in terms of the uplift to people's pay, their fair pay for a fair day's work. I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about the way that broad-based community organising works and why it's so important to our society and why it should be an election call now. It's a membership alliance recruiting whole organisations to work together. One-to-one meetings develop relationships with individuals from each member institution, transcending the boundaries of class, gender, age, ethnicity and faith. So you have Newcastle University alongside charities, alongside schools, alongside faith institutions, and they stretch from Sunderland, Durham, North Tyneside, Northumberland, Newcastle. Formal listening campaigns hold one-to-ones to identify concerns that individuals want to pursue. They organise issues workshops attended by all to identify which of the shared issues will be chosen as a subject to be pursued and form action groups around each issue. Leadership training is offered to everybody. Meetings with decision makers are like none other. They're fascinating. To a meeting goes a delegation, a diverse group which includes people with personal stories. And those in power are usually just not expecting any of this. They're kind of second-footed by it all. But it's a really good engagement with people. And then there's actions. Actions are respectful, purposeful, often fun, but aim to succeed. You've heard a bit about the one with Sunderland University. I'll say a bit more. It involves singing Christmas carols with adapted words about the need for a real living wage. And in Sunderland University, this brought about a meeting with the Vice-Chancellor, and you've heard the outcome from Sara. Other actions. Local mothers organised to put bins, lights and play equipment in a North Shields park, and this was welcomed by the council. They didn't know that this was needed, they didn't know who to go to, they didn't know the community cared so much, and when the community came forward, they were pleased about that. School students have carried out shed loads of listening, and this has led to the call for school-based mental health workers in every school becoming a key national policy ask. And it led to the bus companies regionally announcing a £1 fare for all under 25s. And Muslim sisters among us spoke about hate crime on public transport. They told us that working together on these actions around this issue means that they've started to feel not quite so alone. And one outcome was a manifesto for change from bus companies. So finally, what better way to build a more equal Northeast than to re-engage people in our communities, enabling them to take responsibility of issues that are affecting us. At a time when trust in our social institutions, particularly government, has never been so low, we desperately need a proven approach, a proven mechanism that strengthens the association between diverse people in local communities and enables previously unorganised people to bring our own power to force others to recognise us and respond to calls for social change and justice. Thank you.